So here is what we are going to focus on today, managing the Easter holidays. Now, this is a very broad and general topic, but hopefully what we're going to do is really give you some important information about certainly what can be amazing about holidays, but also why they can be especially stressful times for children with autism and all of you and families. I should say before we start, just a tiny bit about me. I've been working with children with autism and families since 1989, so for about 30 years. I've worked in many different settings, in school settings and in residential programs, as well as in healthcare settings, done a lot of home-based support work for families and children with autism over the years, and early intervention work. I'm incredibly excited to be a part of this wonderful project to ultimately improve the lives of individuals with autism and families, and so this is a part of that effort. So, managing the Easter holidays. So what I want to get across to all of you, mostly through video, is some of these points in particular, that Easter holidays, let's see, maybe I'll minimize that, is that better? Easter holidays can be exceptionally challenging times for individuals with autism and families because what we know about individuals with autism, children with autism, is that their brains and bodies are different. And their brains and bodies are different in such a way that everyday life, everyday interactions, everyday social situations can be incredibly overwhelming, confusing, unpredictable, even with the people they love and trust more than anyone, which is all of you. So one of the things that's been incredibly helpful for me as a professional to learn over the years is what that looks like, how that actually plays out in terms of these differences and these challenges that children have. And it's helped me much more deeply not only understand autism, but also kind of walk in the shoes of the children with autism that I'm working with, to try to really get underneath or get inside of their experience, what it might be like for them. And that's really helped me be much more effective in supporting and helping and teaching individuals with autism. So what I'd like to say is that these kinds of everyday activities and routines are so difficult for individuals with autism because, as I said, being able to predict and anticipate other people's actions and behavior can be so challenging that any change in a routine can be incredibly stressful and overwhelming and confusing, okay? And so obviously during holidays, when families gather together, there's wonderful opportunities for social interaction, for family bonding, for celebration, for affection and love to be shared, and that's all a very beautiful thing. But when you have a brain and body that's wired differently, and everyday interactions and social situations can be much more confusing and overwhelming already, when you then add those kinds of social changes and routine changes to the holidays, you can find much greater levels of stress for our children on the spectrum. And I think that's what we really want to focus on, understanding that, and then really breaking that down and thinking about how that impacts interactions for a child during the holidays, and then what we can do to help. Okay? So these are the things we know. Family gatherings can create incredible challenges. There are a lot more people. Sometimes those people, although they're wonderful extended family, can be less familiar to our children, which means more social stress and confusion. So let's actually shift now to the video, because I think this is really going to come alive, these issues and challenges, when we pay attention to a particular video clip. Okay, so what you're going to see in this video is what happens for a child when they are in a situation that is somewhat unpredictable. Okay, here we go. This is the clip we're going to look at. This guy is, as you can see at the bottom, he's a toddler. He's 32 months old, and he is in an assessment situation at a clinic. So he's not at home. This is not his home environment. He's being evaluated for autism in this clip, and so he's in an unfamiliar environment. This is his mom sitting in this chair in the background. So mom is in the room and available. Grandma you'll see later, so she's in the room. There's a wonderful examiner, right, who's doing the evaluation and the test, who's really trying to engage him in some different activities. So what I'm going to do is play the clip, and then I'm going to pause it, and I'm really going to analyze very specific things that are happening in this video, especially from this child's perspective. Given what I've learned about autism, what we know about autism, it's much easier for us at this point to be able to understand what's happening for this guy and what might be going on in his brain and body. So let's really pay close attention here to the interactions between this guy and the adults in the room.
I've got some Play-Doh. Yeah.
Okay. What the examiner said is we're going to play some Play-Doh. And so what she's doing is she's taking away a tractor that he's been playing with and is very, very focused on and interested in. She's taking the tractor away to say, let's do something different, right? Let's change it. Let's play with Play-Doh. And look at his reaction here. No. I am not ready for this change. I was enjoying my tractor and you took it away. So let's watch.
So you want to keep that in here? Okay.
Now, she's very responsive to him. She said, oh, I see, you want to keep playing with your tractor. What's important to acknowledge about him is he doesn't yet have strong enough communication skills developed to be able to say, excuse me, I was playing with my tractor. Can I have my tractor back, please? All he has right now is his behavior. So he grabs the tractor back, and fortunately this adult is responsive and reads his cues and says, oh, you want your tractor. So this is a very important moment here.
It broke. You know what? We're going to tell this toy bye-bye for a minute, and we're going to get our Play-Doh out. We've got our Play-Doh. And this toy is going to go bye-bye. Bye. No. Okay.
So there we go. Attempt number 2 on the adult's part to try to take the tractor away and introduce a new activity. What did we hear our little friend say? No. So fortunately, he actually has the word no. He's able to say the word no. So he's reaching, he's trying to grab the tractor back, and he's saying no. So he's trying his best to communicate that he really is still playing with his tractor, really wants to continue doing that. He actually handed the tractor to her to get her assistance because 2 pieces of the tractor were not fitting together for him. So again, he actually handed it to her to ask for help, and she took it potentially as, okay, let's move the tractor and transition to another activity. So as you can see, he's still very focused on his tractor. And we know that individuals with autism can get very focused on a particular object of interest because their brains are wired in such a way that objects can be much easier to take in and make sense of than people. People are moving very quickly. People are far less predictable than a concrete object. So this can be incredibly challenging for him to shift his attention from an object that makes sense to him to an unfamiliar person who's trying to talk to him and interact with him. So he's going to his comfort zone, which is the tractor.
I'll tell you what, let's come over here with it. Sit down right here. Ethan, let's come around this way. Come over here. Let's move it over here. I'm going to fix it for you. There you go. Come over here. Come over here, Ethan.
So Again, no, he says. And you can see the struggle because the parts are not fitting together for him. And it's very difficult for him to turn to an adult at that point and say, excuse me, I'm having trouble here. Can you help me? This is very hard for him. He's going to need a lot of support and help to strengthen his communication skills. So right now, this is the best he's got, right? But you can see the level of stress and frustration when things are not going as he expects they're going to go, and these pieces are not fitting together, okay? Many of you as families see this happen a lot with your kids, as well as the situation where you're with your child and you want them to transition to a new activity. You get into this kind of situation all the time where your child is focused on an object, focused on an activity, and shifting them away from that can lead to increased stress, tantrums, meltdowns, challenging behavior, and this is a very powerful example of this.
I know. You know what? We're going to put that over here and tell it bye-bye, truck. Bye-bye.
So there's a moment where he thinks, oh, good, I'm going to get some help now with my tractor. What he doesn't realize is that his wonderful friend, the adult, is actually removing the tractor from the room. I think mom is realizing what's about to happen here, that the tractor's going away. So let's watch what happens.
Look at something. This is going to show you about Bibles. Let me show you the Bibles. Look. Look.
Okay, so from the child's perspective, what have you just done? Why did you take my tractor away? I was trying to get you to help me with it, and you've just taken it away. That makes no sense to me, right? So this is a well-intentioned, wonderful adult who's trying to be helpful and get the tractor away because it looked like the tractor was causing some frustration and stress, and she's trying to shift him to perhaps a more social activity, which is playing Play-Doh with her, and for him, this is a nightmare. Again, we have to think about if he doesn't know this person, hasn't had a lot of history of interaction with this person, playing spontaneously with her in a more open-ended game like Play-Doh is not so easy. It's a bit stressful. It's a bit overwhelming. So he wants to go back to his comfort zone activity of the tractor. And he's letting us know that with his behavior. Now, again, years ago, I saw something like this very differently. I would view a situation like this as a kid who's essentially just being rigid, a child who's perhaps maybe being a bit spoiled, a child who's just getting their way by using negative behavior and being demanding. And I used to think that because I actually didn't understand what was going on in this guy's brain and body that was making social interaction so difficult and was creating enormous stress for him because he's just hanging on to his own comfort zone activity in a confusing social situation. Now, most kids are not going to do so well in a doctor's office situation where there's no familiar routines, there's no familiar activities. So a lot of kids are going to struggle in a situation like this, and so is he. So let's watch what happens.
Look, we've got some bubbles. I'm sorry. We're going to play with some more toys.
So can you see how for him his whole world has fallen apart? It just does not make sense to him. This adult has taken away my toy. Nobody's explained why. I don't understand. I'm in distress. And so now watch mom come down and really try to comfort him, try to soothe him.
Let's bring the tractor back in, and we can have the tractor with us while we play other things. What is going to get the tractor? I'll go get the tractor. I'll go get it, and we'll try it with other things. We'll see. Let's do this.
Now, he does understand that they say the word tractor. And so you can see he immediately calms down because he's anticipating that he's going to get his tractor back. So
that room's closed.
No, that really doesn't even.
No, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't.
Oh, that doesn't even. That doesn't go to that. That goes
This
to this.
goes together. See?
now he's still, again, he has his tractor, but this is still incredibly frustrating for him that these parts are not working as they should together. He's already stressed enough. And then this little thing, like the tractor parts, what doesn't seem like a big deal to most of us, for him is a huge deal, because his experience is, can I just, this one thing that I'm focused on and I want to work, can we just have it work, please? And it's not working. So I want us to watch very closely. And this is where we're looking at the solution part, the strategy part, what we can do to support an overwhelmed and stressed out child through this. Watch grandma and mom here really collaborate to try to understand what he's thinking, what he's feeling, and how to help him through this. Let's watch.
See if that goes together.
That doesn't fit. No, that does not fit.
Okay, so that's grandma explaining to him. You see, honey, that doesn't fit. That's so important, because what she's doing is she's recognizing and acknowledging what he's incredibly focused on and most interested in that moment. She's not saying no. She's not saying tractor's all done. She's not saying, let it go and let's go to the Play-Doh. She's paying attention to his cues, watching his eyes, watching his behavior very closely. Excuse me, I forgot to turn my message app off. I apologize. So what we can see happening here is, again, a grandma and mom that are collaborating very closely to try to understand his experience and really respond to him in a way that helps him make better sense of the world and try to get essentially his kind of goal accomplished, right? And also really explain to him that sometimes things don't work as you want them to. And you can see mom, how wonderful mom is really trying to just soothe him and support him, and she actually touches him, and even though he's very locked on the object, and this is where you can also see how difficult it is that even though he's stressed and needs people's help desperately, it's still very difficult for him to turn to grandma or turn to mom and ask for and accept help and even recognize that their help is available in that way. And this is what's so important for us to recognize. The reason why this guy is so stressed out a lot of the time is because his world is more narrowly focused on objects. So he's not shifting his eyes over to the people around him and taking them in, and therefore he's not recognizing them often as sources of support. So mom and grandma are doing a wonderful job here of really trying to make their support for him even clearer, right? By moving in really closely to him and being so supportive.
This trailer goes with that trailer.
Do you know what this, Ethan? Do you know what this is like?
Can you see, again, grandma really focusing on his interests and what he's locked into, trying to understand in that moment, and she's explaining this to him very calmly. Mom's not getting agitated. Grandma's not getting agitated. They're not saying, you need to let go of the stupid truck, right? They're being very understanding and very supportive, recognizing how incredibly overwhelming and stressful this is for him. Now watch grandma. I'm just going to play this clip. Watch how grandma really helps him through this and explains this to him.
This is like Papa's tractor. This is just like Papa's tractor.
And look, there's Papa.
There's Papa driving his tractor.
Yeah.
That's right.
There we
That's
go.
Papa driving his tractor.
Look at there.
That's.
Oops. Look, see? Just like Papa's tractor. Okay, so he's very familiar with tractors. Perhaps his dad has a tractor and drives one. It sounds like that's the case. So tractors are very familiar to him and a part of his his everyday experience. And so when she says, see Papa's driving his tractor, all of a sudden the world makes sense to him. So again, a wonderful illustration of helping a child who's incredibly overwhelmed and stressed out by what seems to be like, you know, simple things that shouldn't be a big deal. How difficult, overwhelming, distressing those things can be for him, especially when he's in, again, an unfamiliar, unpredictable social situation with a less familiar adult, who's this examiner. So this is a very powerful illustration of what all of you as families go through with your kids multiple times a day, every day, and especially during a holiday, during a time where the daily weekday routines of school are interrupted, and where there may be much more social chaos and transition happening as more adults are coming in and out. So what's also important, and I'm going to shift back to the slides, what's really important for us to think about is how do we better prepare for situations like this, and how can we best support our children through sometimes these difficult, overwhelming, challenging moments in everyday life. Okay, so I'm going to now leave this. This is a wonderful website, by the way, called Autism Navigator, that has a ton of video clips, video clip examples, and let's see. Hopefully all of you can see this screenshot. Actually, no, what I'm going to do is pull this back up and end my, no, I want to keep sharing my screen actually, because I'm going to pull up a PowerPoint slide. Okay. Now I'm looking at the attendees. Okay, so it is, we are still at the same point in terms of parent participation that we were at when we first began the webinar. So I'm going to keep talking. Yay! Okay, so the video really helped illustrate these issues, correct? Now again, this wasn't a family gathering, but we certainly got a picture of what a family gathering might be like, with adults trying to interact in a Play-Doh activity or trying to talk with a child who's really having a hard time understanding what's going on. Now, again, it's important to recognize that one of the reasons why this guy is so stressed out is because what we've learned about children with autism over the years is that they can be much stronger visual learners than they are auditory learners. And what that means is that when his attention is focused on the truck, for example, if an adult keeps talking to him or trying to talk to him, trying to get a response or trying to explain something to him, he may not process everything that's being said. So showing him what we're doing, right? What's coming next. So for example, if the presenter, the tester, the examiner, if she had taken out the Play-Doh, laid the Play-Doh on the table, and started playing with the Play-Doh and saying, squeeze the Play-Doh, for example, he may have understood much better what she was going to be doing and what activity she was presenting to him. But because she just sort of held the Play-Doh out of his reach and said, okay, we're going to play Play-Doh, he may not be understanding, okay, so what are we going to do next? If you take my train away, what activity's coming? What can I look forward to? I don't know what we're going to do with this Play-Doh. I don't like Play-Doh as much, right? So showing him exactly what's going to happen and what we're going to do with the Play-Doh may have made the activity more appealing for him and much more predictable. Okay, so that's just one example. So therein lies the secret to predictability, right? Showing our children what's happening in their environment, what's coming next, when they can look forward to something that they enjoy, especially that's familiar and that's preferred. Very key. Okay. So here are some clues that you also saw in the video that, again, we've learned are crucial for really helping our children with autism connect more with people, be more available for social interaction, be calmer and more alert, more focused, more available for social interaction and for activities. Following, again, when you see this first bullet point, your child is the teacher, so follow them. And these are some wonderful points that come from Guy's talk called The Beautiful Reality of Autism, where he really, I think, guides us through a very important understanding of what it might be like to be to experience autism and to have some of the incredible struggles and challenges every day, as well as some of the incredible strengths that people with autism have. Like, so for this guy, for example, one of his wonderful strengths is paying very close attention to the inner workings and the details of objects and mechanical things, right? He's recognizing that these two pieces aren't fitting together as they should. What an important life skill to have if you're going to be an engineer, or if you're going to be doing some software programming or something along those lines that requires incredible detail, incredible focus on details. At the same time, if you can't go from the details and pull back your attention and see the bigger picture and take that in, you can see how everyday social situations can be difficult. So this guy has to shift quickly back and forth between the object of his interest and the examiner, the other adults, mom, grandma, and that's very hard for him. So he's much more stressed. Okay. So following his interests and his initiative is really crucial. And this is a very important thing to consider over the holidays. Really try to pay attention to, what is my child, what are they thinking, what might they be feeling, what are they interested in, what are they focused on, what do they want, what do they need. If we're able to do that, we can oftentimes come up with solutions that will really facilitate much more ease in terms of moving from activity to activity, or helping our child kind of calm down when they're much more stressed. Okay, so you saw mom and grandma doing that beautifully in the video. Remember that they are seeing the world differently than we do, right? That video example becomes very different when we're thinking about what is incredibly difficult for this guy because of the way his brain and body are different. And we have much greater understanding and compassion and also clarity about what's going on for him, and then how to respond when we recognize that he's really seeing the world and experiencing the world very differently, right? In some ways, his perspective on the world is certainly more narrow visually, because he's not shifting very easily to the entirety of what's happening in the room. So that makes him, of course, much more stressed out, in some ways more guarded. So emphasizing how you can make your child's life better. You saw grandma do that beautifully. Okay, so here's some sort of basic kind of go-to strategies we want all of you as families to be thinking about over the holidays. This is easier said than done, by the way. I look back on my career as a professional, and there were so many times when I would get into control battles myself with children or with teenagers I was working with, because I was attached to having a situation go a particular way. And I couldn't do the very first thing right here, which is take a breath, take a step back, okay? And as I learned to do that and practice that over the years, and as I developed also greater self-calming skills, which I will always be grateful to people with autism and families for teaching me, I was much more successful. So taking a step back is very powerful, and just saying, okay, whoo, Let me just, and again, you saw grandma and mom do that beautifully in this video, taking a step back and really considering what might be going on for the child. Make sure to plan cushion time for them, meaning just make sure that we're during the chaos and sometimes the intensity of the holiday, we're planning for a time where our kids actually can relax and just focus on, like for this guy, we're planning for a time where he can just sit with his train or his tractor and enjoy playing even by himself with the tractor. That social situations and social interaction, because it's harder for our kids, can be that much more exhausting and demanding. So we need to remember to factor in downtime for our kids, as well as for us. Ensure they're feeling safe and comfortable. Again, focusing on your child's strengths, which again, you saw grandma and mom do beautifully. By sort of explaining to him the situation with the tractor and recognizing that he actually has this incredible understanding of the tractor, as well as how dad uses the tractor. Slowing it down. You saw again when he was escalating and getting louder and getting more tense and stressed, you saw mom and grandma actually move slower, right? Their tones of voices came down. It's really wonderful to watch. Now, a lot of us do this very intuitively, but some of us, especially as our child's escalate with our child because we're getting stressed and what we're trying to do that's helpful isn't working. So this can be incredibly challenging. And again, one of the wonderful things that Guy, I think, talks a lot about, both in his book as well as on the website, is the importance of me as a professional or as a parent, as an adult, being able to calm myself down and really having some ways of doing that, ways of talking myself through that, of using, whether it's a deep breath or whatever it might be, ways of kind of calming myself down. And if I can do that, ultimately, I'm going to be much more helpful for my child. Usually things get incredibly challenging when I get worked up as an adult and a child is getting worked up, and we kind of feed off of each other, right? We're both escalating together. So this is incredibly important, but again, challenging. Okay. So some of this we've already touched on through the video. Before the moment, meaning being planful and really trying to prepare. And this is incredibly important to do as a family before you're in the midst of the holiday chaos. Oftentimes we can be reactive to situations rather than being proactive because life is moving quickly and we're just trying to get through the day. But even a 5-minute sit down and think about what we're going to do for the next 5 days over the holidays, and kind of like writing it out or talking about it with your spouse or your family can make a huge difference. So again, some of these things that we saw, provide information for your child about what will be happening, who's going to be coming, what they can expect to happen over the course of the day. These can be incredibly powerful. And what we know, as I explained earlier, for individuals with autism is that they can be much stronger visual learners than if we just explain things to them verbally. And this is interesting because I think this is true actually for most of us as adults. If you were to pull my phone out of my hand, which has my daily calendar and schedule on it, I would be extremely confused and stressed. I would be overwhelmed, and I would be having a hard time predicting, okay, so when is that? When am I doing that webinar? And when's my next family consult? And when am I doing that school district visit? What time is that happening? I would be extremely stressed. So looking down, glancing down at my phone actually frequently to remind myself of the daily schedule is incredibly calming from my central nervous system, as well as for my own sense of what the priorities are and what the tasks are that I need to accomplish. So this, when you think about this for us as adults, this can really help us understand one of the major supports that our kids can benefit from, which is whatever work, again, this depends on the developmental level of your child. If your child is using words and is reading a visual calendar or schedule that has written out, 8 a.m., breakfast with mommy and grandma, blah, 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 can be wonderful. Some of our kids are not at the point yet where they're able to see a written word and connect it with a particular picture of an event or an activity. And so we need to use pictures or what we would call sort of icons or sometimes visual drawings of a particular routine or activity, like breakfast, like going in the car, going to feed the ducks at the pond, going to the store, TV time, whatever it might be. So again, those really trying to map things out visually for your child with a visual schedule, if that's something that they're familiar with and that's for example used in the school program, that can be a wonderful tool to use at home as well. Okay. This is an example that is a bit hard to see. So basically, all that's important to pull from this is the specific details, and mapping those out can be so important. The why, the what, the how, to map those things out for our kids. I'm going to go back to this because this is a crucial aspect, not only for us, but for our children, considering your child's coping or calming skills. Now, what you saw in the video is, I think, was very important. The child's coping skills, calming skills, actually were multiple. One of the ways that this child coped with or dealt with or handled a very difficult, stressful situation is he actually communicated, which is great. Which again, I would recognize as this child's particular strengths. He started to get agitated, but he immediately then reached towards the adult who was, again, the examining clinician in the room. He said the word no, right? Fantastic. So these are skills that we want to be teaching our children if they don't already have them, and he has them. So we want to, again, reinforce them or respond positively and quickly to them, because then he gets a sense that his message is getting across, right? That he's communicating, even though it's he's not yet maybe looking or gesturing or staying calm as much as we'd like him to. He's communicating in a wonderful way. So we really want to respond positively to that and reinforce that. And that's one of the skills that he has. As well, I would say that one of his calming skills is really focusing his attention on an object of interest, right? So certainly we know that tractors and looking at tractors, as long as they hook together properly, can be very calming for him. He gets a lot of joy and pleasure from looking at the tractor and thinking about the tractor. So again, having a tractor available, even if it's perhaps a very small toy tractor that he can have with him or carry around and just look at from time to time, might really help him, especially during more stressful times. If you're going out into the community with family, or when there's a lot of family around, if he just has something like that to remind him of his wonderful tractor, that can help him through some very difficult, overwhelming situations. And then these are some other examples. Again, having a safe place or a room. Where can your child go when 5 cousins are in the room, grandma and grandpa, and a couple cousins are yelling at each other, and it's loud, and it's stressful and overwhelming? What can we offer for our child? Where can he go where he can feel a bit more safe, where there's not as much intense social stimulation happening, whether it's a room or a corner of a room, or even a little spot under a desk that's a bit contained, where there's a pillow where he can just sit and feel kind of a little bit more enclosed, and like he's got a little bit of shelter from the storm. the social storm per se. So a favorite blanket, right? Favorite toys, calming music, books. So the more we think through and plan through, having these tools available, the easier stressful holiday time is going to be. Absolutely. Okay. Always remember that there will be lots of chaos and unexpected changes, and that's okay. This is the really important message to take away from this, parents, is that this is not, the point here is not to make you more stressed and put more pressure on you to, for example, have this big magic bag of tools and tricks and toys available. And now, my gosh, now I have to come up with this visual schedule, and I have to put pictures on it and prepare it and post it on the walls. And that's really important not to really think about it that way as additional layers of stress for you. Do whatever you can do as a family. You know, do what works given the resources that you have, the time that you have. Every little bit will make a huge difference, will go a really long way. You know, and again, grandma and mom in this situation, they didn't have a visual schedule, right? They didn't have a visual explaining what was happening with the tractor or reminding him to, you know, that at the end of this exam, he's going to go back to the car and get his favorite blanket and his favorite food. You know, they didn't have any of that prepared beforehand, but they still got through it. So keep that in mind. It's a lot to manage, and we want to give you tools and information, not added stress to have to do this right. And we've already gone through some of these during the moment, right? The heat of the moment, even when the planning has happened, or even if it hasn't happened, what do you do? Okay, we already talked about the visual schedule. One thing, if possible, again, this completely depends on the family and all of you and your resources. Sometimes there's no way to avoid having everyone stay in your child's bedroom because that's the only bedroom that's available, and that's okay. Then within that bedroom, maybe there's a spot, you know, where we can, under a bunk bed or something, or under a desk or a table, where we can put a little curtain, right, and put your child's favorite toys or pillow underneath there, as a way to encourage them to go there when everything's too much, right? But so here's of course, ideally, one of the most important things is if there's any way that you cannot have your child's bedroom be the most social gathering place or the place where everyone stays, things will tend to go better, as you can see from the video. Having more people and more chaos can be difficult. Trying to maintain bedtime and morning routines, again, when the social world is very unpredictable, what your child oftentimes craves and needs more than anything is for something to be the same, right? Sameness, control, predictability. Again, we all need it. Like me with my phone, and certainly me with having my coffee in a certain way every morning. This is a crucial morning routine for me, and if I don't have it, and my coffee maker breaks, or who knows what happens to throw off the routine, I'm much more stressed out. And so the same is actually true for all of us. We like and we crave and we need our daily routines to minimize stress, and kind of get ourselves calm, alert, and focused. Even more so with our kids. Okay, so really trying to maintain the same bedtime if possible, and have morning routines be as similar as possible, at least for them. That can make a huge difference. And then again, trying to keep the regularly scheduled activities, especially if they're preferred, can make a huge difference. Here's another example of a holiday routine. First thing in the morning, get up, toilet, wash hands, breakfast. Anyway, this is a written schedule that can be greatly enhanced with pictures of the toilet, pictures of the sink or hand washing, pictures of the favorite breakfast cereal, and so on. Okay. I'm just going to pan out here and check the time. Okay, it looks like we're doing okay. I'll pause and see if Guy wants to chime in. I think maybe we'll go for another couple of minutes and then we will transition with some final announcements. So if that doesn't sound appropriate, Guy, you can chime in and let me know. Okay, good. So again, we are going to recognize and support our child's use of their coping skills whenever possible, especially when they appear overwhelmed, stressed, or anxious, which again, we got some wonderful, clear visual examples of from the video that we saw with Grandma and Mom. One of my favorite coping skills is drinking water. And it's healthy. So we want to communicate as much as possible with our family members. And, you know, again, this really depends on every individual family, on the way as family you gather together, the way as family you already communicate with one another, the way you as family are understanding and communicating about your child's unique condition, your child's unique situation, your child's strengths and difficulties. Some families, because of their particular culturally based values and beliefs, may not want to talk openly, directly about autism. And you have to find within your family and your culture what makes the most sense for you. The bottom line with all of it, though, is that the more information people have about what to do that works to support your child and to have positive, successful interactions with your child, the better. So in other words, helping a grandparent understand that if they keep asking your child questions over and over again, that may not help him stay with you or help him interact with you as much as if you just, for example, sit next to him and talk about the tractor that he's looking at or playing with, right? So just, again, trying to make it really simple, really clear, really concrete about what works and what may not work as well can be incredibly helpful. Because the bottom line is all of our family members, cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents, everybody wants to connect with your child. They want to be successful. It just can be difficult. And what they're doing sometimes intuitively by asking questions or talking, what might work for a typical child may not work for your child. And so oftentimes people can take that personally and think it's, might interpret it as, my grandson doesn't love me. And so again, really trying to frame it as he just has certain ways that he likes interacting and communicating. Let's see if we can, let's try that. Let's try just sitting next to him with our own train or tractor and seeing if maybe he's more open to interacting with you. So very, very important considerations as family. Any time that you can take to recharge is going to make a huge difference. Even if it's, you just make yourself a cup of coffee and you put music on for with your headphones for 5 minutes, can make a huge difference in terms of resetting your own battery and really helping yourself recharge. So really trying to do that can make a huge difference, and really thinking of it as important. Again, I know this can be incredibly difficult to do in the chaos and the intensity of family life. Trying to focus on what's positive and successful and working can make a really big difference. I will say this. I shifted my own focus working with children with autism dramatically over the years. I used to be very focused on trying to change behavior that was negative or difficult or challenging. And a huge lesson for me has been really shifting more to what's working and what's positive and successful. So rather than paying huge attention to difficult or challenging behavior, I now pay a lot more attention to the moments of connection, the moments of laughter with a child, the moments where a child turns to me and initiates something with me. I really have learned to put those moments, those positive moments, under a magnifying glass and really blow them up and expand them, and I think learn more from them. So it's difficult because we have an entire system of care that's focused on deficits, that really views our children as sort of collections of difficult or challenging behavior. And I think as parents, this has can have a very, very profound impact on how you see your child. So I think that at the Transforming Autism Project, we're really focusing on strengths and what's really positive and wonderful about individuals with autism as well as families. So keep coming back to our webinars for more of that, as well as reading the wonderful resources that Guy has put on the website, which is a great segue, I believe, to the end of our webinar today. Try to keep it simple, focus on what's working, and have realistic expectations. Again, remember grandma and mom in the video letting go of their expectations that their son was going to immediately play with Play-Doh. Okay, they could have stuck with that. They could have pushed. They could have said, no, we are playing with Play-Doh, come on. But they understand that for their son, this is incredibly difficult. Being able to play Play-Doh, which is not a preferred activity with a unfamiliar adult, they can't expect that. So they're actually shifting their expectations to something that's a bit more realistic for him, which is just accepting that these two trains linking together is going to be a triumph, right? And he worked through that. He was finally able to understand that sometimes the connection between the trains is going to work, and sometimes it's not. So again, that's just a concrete example. So having expectations, given your child's challenges, their level of development, sometimes we have to really adjust our expectations, and it's okay to do that.